Hello, everybody. Um, we are live today with Sachin Patel, and we are going to be talking about being your own best doctor. And that is a phrase you're going to hear throughout this 45 minutes or so of this interview and this conversation. If you have any questions during the process, just post them in the comments. I'll be monitoring Facebook as we go. And Sachin, I just want to first off welcome you. Sachin and I are longtime colleagues. Went to a chiropractic school together, what seems like a long time ago at this point. And
yeah, it does.
Everybody has progressed forward and is moving forward in a functional medicine, functional lifestyle, and being your own best doctor mindset. So first off, welcome everybody to the One Change Away video cast. And we are going to jump right in. Sachin's a well-known expert in this field. Of being your own best doctor. He talks about it quite a bit when we are discussing it as well as online. So Sachin, again, thank you for participating in this live video cast. And we're going to jump right in. And could you tell us a little bit about your background and how you got started in the functional medicine field and what we're talking about today?
Sure. Well, first off, thank you, David, for doing this. Thank you for hosting me and having me present to your tribe. I'm really excited for the information that we're going to share today. And I'm thrilled that you're taking the initiative to put this information out into the world, because more people, as you and I both know, need to hear this now than ever before. So my story starts back where your story starts, right? We were in chiropractic school together, graduated in the class of 04, and I started working in a active release based practice, which for those of you that don't know is a structural care practice geared specifically towards muscular, tendinous, and ligamentous injuries. And so I ended up working a lot with athletes. In fact, my boss at the time was a triathlete. So that's the type of avatar that we drew into our practice. And we worked with some of the healthiest people in our community, people who would complain about not being able to run a sub 3-hour marathon. And pretty much overnight that changed, because in 2006, about 2 years into practice, I was asked to be on the news. And my boss originally was asked, but she was too nervous because she had frozen on live television prior to that and decided from the trauma that she experienced that she'd never go on live camera again. So instead, I was next in line. And I was excited about it. 2 years into practice, you get to be on the news, you get to be featured. And it was an opportunity I could not turn down. So they did the story. Story was about elbow pain, specifically golfer's elbow and tennis elbow. We helped this lady, Connie, basically eradicate her chronic elbow issues after surgery had failed and physiotherapy had failed her. And so that's what got us on the news. And as a result of that, we had many, many people call in the office that day and the next day. I still remember the phone was ringing off the hook. It was about 5:20 when the actual news article aired. And we went overnight from seeing the healthiest people in our community to some of the sickest, truly the sickest people in our community. And that was really eye-opening for me, because I couldn't help them. I could help elite athletes run faster, throw harder, jump further, but I couldn't help the people that really needed me the most. So it was a really gut-wrenching experience for me. It's actually quite traumatizing as a clinician, because I didn't know where to send them. So Dave, you've probably encountered people that were not best suited for your services, but you probably had a place to refer them to. And when you don't have that, it's almost like, you feel helpless. It's almost like a parent who feels helpless and they can't help their child. So that was my experience. And, I tried to help these people as best I could, but I had to be honest with them and let them know that this is beyond my scope and that I didn't know where to send them. There was one story that sticks out. There was a gentleman actually who I was able to help, who was taking 16 Tylenol tablets per day.
Wow.
for 10 years. So we did the math and it was like this ridiculous number. Imagine taking 3,650 Tylenol tablets per year for 10 years.
I just posted a Tylenol tablet warning and breakdown just the other day. So they know what you're talking about.
Yeah. So this gentleman was like in his 50s. He looked like he was in his 80s. So it definitely ages you. It definitely destroys you. But he had headaches. That was his main complaint. And nobody had been able to help him. Like the one thing that I realized is nobody had ever touched his head. So not once had anyone laid their hands on him, because they were scanning him and probing him and doing all kinds of stuff. but not once had anyone actually laid their hands on him. And it turned out he had a occipital nerve that was creating all of his headaches. And within a couple of weeks, he was gone. So, I was able to help a few of those people, but the majority of them I couldn't, because they were coming in with chronic, debilitating, degenerative health issues like rheumatoid arthritis, like fibromyalgia, like psoriasis, like chronic digestive issues. So I kind of broke down and I asked one of the clients, what brought you in here? Because the story was about golfer's elbow and tennis elbow, and clearly you don't have that. What brought you in? And they said hope. And so what I realized is that there's thousands, if not millions of people that are simply looking for a ray of hope for someone who can help them. And I was honest with her and I said, I can't really do much for you, but I'll refer you to a more holistic medical doctor, but I don't know if there's much that she can do for you either. And right around that same time, I started getting information from Dr. Ron Grisanti, who later became both of our mentors. And he was sharing case studies of people that he was able to help with similar conditions to what people were coming in with. And so that's when my functional medicine journey started. I took his training program. And at first I was like, why am I doing this? Because I've got a somewhat successful practice, at least I thought at the time. And, I was comfortable and cushy where I was. I didn't see myself really going anywhere other than where I was. And my goal was to eventually buy the practice that I was working in. And this really stirred the pot because I learned a whole new paradigm of healthcare. And initially I said, let me learn it for myself. I said, if nothing else, I'll learn this for myself, because at the time I was personally experiencing some digestive issues. I was still experiencing acne and things like that. And I knew there was something more that I could have done. I was already eating pretty healthy and doing things that I thought were right at the time. And it turns out when I did the functional medicine training, I wasn't. And one of the first things I learned was about gluten. So I immediately cut out gluten, and my fatigue that I was experiencing went away. My acne started disappearing. My digestive issues started disappearing, and I felt a whole lot better. I'm like, wow, that's just one simple change. And then I started learning more of the different modules that we were training in, and my health started even getting better. Now my hair didn't grow back, but other things, other benefits came from that. And so once you learn functional medicine, you can't go back. And when it came time for me to take over the other practice I was in, my boss at the time didn't want anything to do with functional medicine. I had to decline that opportunity because I didn't want to work with athletes anymore. I wanted to work with people who truly needed me. And athletes can benefit from functional medicine, but what I'm trying to say is that there's people who are far worse off and have bigger problems for me to be able to help them solve. And that's where my journey started. And since then, I worked for another clinic at the time. After that transition took place, and then in 2000 and I guess it was 2011. Wow, time flies. I started the Living Proof Institute, and that was kind of my own self-exploration in delivering functional medicine to my community and in entrepreneurship. It was my first time being an entrepreneur and having to run my own business. So it was a lot of learning that took place around that time, and I've never looked back since.
So, when you first jumped into functional medicine, I remember my conversation with you. You were about 2 or 3 years ahead of me, and about the dynamics of it. But what roadblocks did you experience jumping into the field?
Well, the roadblocks in functional medicine are not clinical, in my opinion, at least, especially when you get a patient who's totally on board. I feel the roadblocks in functional medicine is the patient paradigm. You've got to really re-educate the patient in terms of, how this process is going to be different than what they've done. Functional medicine in many regards is the exact opposite of traditional medicine. So we rely on the patient and taking a thorough history in order to determine where to place our focus. We then run labs. We then run labs that help us find the root cause, functional lab testing versus diagnostic testing. We also put a lot of onus and responsibility back on the patient because, ultimately they're their own doctor. We're not there 24/7 with them, regardless of how good we are as a practitioner and how knowledgeable we are and how on point our recommendations are. The patient ultimately has to take action. So this is a radically different way of approaching somebody's health. You're not treating symptoms, you're getting to the root cause, you're doing investigative lab testing, you're doing investigative questioning to find out if there's something in their environment or their emotional or spiritual imbalance that's creating their health issues. Sometimes it could be a relationship. that's causing issues. We also have a firm belief as chiropractors and as functional medicine practitioners that the body has innate wisdom and intelligence, and the ability for the body to heal is always present. We just have to tap into that and stop interfering with it. So the biggest challenge I found was education. How do I educate my community? How do I educate my clients? And then, the second hurdle from there is obviously, is this covered by my insurance? We want things to be covered by our insurance. Certainly, I would love for my insurance to pay for my gas. I would love for my car insurance to pay for new tires and new brakes. I would love for it to pay for a new paint job, but guess what? That's not what it's for, right? If I get into a car accident, then yes, my insurance is going to kick in and it's going to get my car back to as close to 100% as possible. It's never going to be quite there. But functional medicine is not quite like that. It's more like going to a tuner versus going to an auto body shop. And so when you go to a tuner, they're going to add more horsepower. They're going to upgrade certain aspects of your engine. They might upgrade your exhaust. They're going to make everything in your car work better. People can literally buy a $150,000 Porsche and drive from the dealership and right into a tuner's garage and get another 100 horsepower out of it. So we want those. I can't speak for you, David. I know that maybe there's some overlap here. Certainly there probably is. But for me, I want people who are of that mindset, that they view themselves as a Porsche or a Ferrari, and they're coming to me to get even more out of it in a safe and effective and, not just clinically effective, but also cost effective way. So those are some of the challenges, is really changing the narrative and the paradigm that the patient has, because many of them are trapped in kind of this archaic insurance, symptom chasing, diagnosing paradigm, and we don't do any of that. So it's really a completely radically different approach to their health, which creates radically different results for them.
And you touched on a point right there when you talked about the shifting of the mindset and having the hope idea. Can you elaborate a little more on the mindset behind how you deal with a client and get them to understand that they are in control and they are their best doctor?
Yeah, so I help patients understand this using a really simple analogy, like your car. So a lot of times people will go to the doctor and they'll be given what they think is dreadful news, that there's nothing wrong with them, right? People, when you don't feel well, you want something to be wrong with you because you want something to be done, or at least you want to feel heard. So imagine taking your car to the mechanic and the mechanic finds nothing wrong with it. You wouldn't be upset at the mechanic, right? You're glad actually that nothing's wrong with the car. There's nothing broken with it. But the question then is, how am I driving? So a lot of times we have to separate the driver and the car, and almost have like an out of body experience, so to speak, and ask ourselves, how am I driving this amazing, the vessel that I've been given, this amazing body that's doing nothing but working for me 24/7, 365, and in 2020, 366, because it's a leap year. So it's working for us around the clock, and it's doing nothing except striving the best it can in the condition that it's in. So that's what's the environmental condition it's in, what's the mindset condition it's in, what's the physiological and chemical condition that it's in, what is the spiritual condition and emotional condition that it's in. Whatever those conditions are, your body's going to take those conditions and do the absolute best that it can. And this mindset is very critical, because many people will think that their body is trying to work against them, where your body never does anything but work for you. I posted this yesterday. If your body wanted to kill you, it just has to stop breathing for 4 minutes. Right. All it wants to do is strive and thrive as best as it can, given the circumstances. So then we have to ask ourselves, what are those circumstances that are necessary for us to be healthy? And I'm sure we'll get into that in this conversation, but I would never take a plant to the nursery if I wasn't watering it, giving it soil, and giving it sunlight, because those are the essential things that I need to be doing in order for that plant to thrive. And I have to give it all of those things, not just water and not worry about the soil and not worry about sunlight. I can't put a plant in the dark, at least most plants, I can't put them in the dark and expect them to thrive. They need adequate sunlight in order for that to happen. They need water for that to happen. They need soil. They need the right temperature. All the conditions have to be right in order for that plant to thrive. And we can't double down on one and neglect another. So I can't say, hey, I'm going to give this plant double the amount of water to compensate for a lack of sunlight. So we really have to help patients and really the public understand that balance is very important. And what we try to tap into is the compound effect. So instead of trying to do one thing 100%, because I meet so many people that they come in and they say, my diet is 100%, I'm 100% paleo, and I'm still having all of these issues. And it's because they haven't dialed in the other aspects. So think of your life like a diamond. You can't just polish one facet of a diamond. You've got to polish all the facets of a diamond at the right angles in order for the light to shine through it properly.
Yep, that's right. That's absolutely right, on point. So let's just jump back to what you just said, the circumstances and what is necessary. When you are talking to a client or speaking to a group of people at a workshop, what are those circumstances you're looking for? What are you trying to get from the client?
Well, the first thing is buy-in, right? So we've got to get them to buy into the fact that they're not broken. Because if they view themselves as being broken, then they're weaponizing their mind and their thoughts against the very thing that's actually going to be helping them and serving them throughout this entire journey. So getting that flip to take place is very critical. And then we have to kind of view the body from my perspective, as a temple. How do we treat the temple? And sometimes, kind of going back to this out of body experience perspective, imagine yourself lying on a table. What advice would you give yourself from a third person perspective on what you need to do to be healthy? I mean, most people, when you ask them that question, they know the answer. So what's stopping them from living out their best life is usually some form of self-sabotage, some form of unresolved emotional challenge, some sort of deep-rooted programming that they're broken, or that they don't deserve to be healthy, or they're not worth the investment of being healthy, or being healthy is expensive, or I can't afford it. I mean, let me tell you this. If you can't afford to be healthy, I don't know how you can afford to be sick. Because from my calculations, being sick is far more expensive, not just financially, but emotionally and spiritually, it's far more expensive as well. You're never going to live your best life. And what I've realized over the years, that being healthy is actually one of the most affordable things that you could possibly be. You miss less days at work, you run a more successful business, you're there for others when they need you because your cup can be poured from, as opposed to being completely empty. And you also have the ability to live a much better quality of life. Your health insurance is usually much less. Your life insurance policies are much less. Your unexpected expenses are much less. If you ever need a surgery or a medication, you usually need less of it because you're healthier. There's far more predictable outcomes that result from it. There's probably going to be a time where I need something, right? I can't predict that. There's no way for me to know what life's going to throw at me. So I don't want to wait to get healthy after I get sick. I should just be healthy all the time, so that if I do encounter a challenge in my life, then I'm in the best position to heal, restore, and regenerate myself. I'll give you an example. My wife has had multiple abdominal surgeries, and she recovered way faster than the average person would because she was taking better care of herself. And in fact, her last time that she went to the hospital, she has a bowel obstruction, so it's common for these things to reoccur. And the third time that she went to the hospital, she was actually able to meditate herself out of the bowel obstruction. They were ready to put a tube down her nose and do CT scans and all kinds of stuff on her, but she was able to get so dialed into her body and communicate to her body, and able to walk out of that hospital that same day. So there's some pretty cool things that we're capable of, but you first have to believe that. You have to buy into that capability, because if you don't buy into that capability, you'll never develop it as a skill. Health is a skill. It's a skill that you're never going to learn. Your employer is not going to teach it to you. Your schools aren't going to teach it to you. We didn't really learn it in even chiropractic school. We learned about how to fix other people, and how to diagnose other people and how to identify when things were not working properly. But we didn't really learn how to take the best absolute care of ourselves possible. And that's something that we've learned through our own personal experiences and additional training that we've taken. And when we can, get somebody to buy into the fact that they can heal, they can regenerate, they can restore themselves, That's the first step. The next step after that is getting them to make a commitment to themselves. And sometimes that commitment is a financial commitment. Certainly, I know that people who pay closer attention. That's just human nature, unfortunately, just the way it is. I mean, I wish that it didn't have to be that way, right? Because we could help so many more people just by sharing this video. Magically, everyone gets better because they listen. But it's the people that make that investment and pay attention and are willing to be coached and are teachable that often see results far greater than somebody kind of working on it on their own. The way the human body works, the way the human mind works, and the way life works in general is we can collapse timelines by working with people who know what they're doing, right? Certainly, and this is why I love mentoring people like yourself, because certainly you could have figured out everything that I figured out over the years, right? But one thing you said is that by working with somebody who has an awareness or who's made all the mistakes, you can collapse years or even sometimes decades worth of time in even one conversation. So the buy-in is important, and then getting that person to personally, financially, emotionally, spiritually commit to the process. And then the third part of it is having somewhat patience. So things aren't going to happen overnight. They can happen very quickly. And an example I give to people is, how long does it take you to feel better when you're on vacation? And most people say within 2 or 3 days. And then I asked them, how long does it take you to feel terrible again when you come back? And they're like, oh my God, before I even get back, I'm feeling worse again because I'm just thinking about what I have to go back to. And so we know it's not your body that's the problem. It's your emotions, it's your environment, it's your vocation, it's your relationships. Stop blaming your body, because that's the only thing that's working for you. And that's the thing that you're turning your back on. Let's really focus on what's creating these imbalances and challenges for you, and let's address them so that you can start feeling better again. And so it can be very quick for people to start feeling better if they create the right circumstances and environment and mindset for that to happen.
And you touched on something when you were talking there. Sachin's a mentor to me. He has a group of like-minded doctors, therapists throughout the world who are part of a group. And it's so nice and enjoyable and beneficial to be able to tap into that knowledge and throw out a question and get an answer from a medical doctor, oncologist, whomever it may be, who may have encountered that, seen that, or dealt with that. But so I want to just right now say thank you for that, because that's helped me immensely over the years. But let's talk a minute about, so you started working in this aspect about 2011. How has that landscape changed? Because we're hearing more and more about functional medicine, functional lifestyle, and preventative care at this point. So can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. So one thing I try not to use is the word prevention, because whatever we're preventing, we're creating. And so from a mindset and subconscious mind perspective, I like to focus on what I'm trying to create. Because, think of your meal. If somebody were to say, hey, I'm eating a cancer prevention diet, well, does that mean that diet causes other diseases and it only prevents cancer, right? How about we eat a diet that promotes our vitality and our health? How about we take supplements because they promote our vitality and health? Or go for a walk, not because I'm trying to prevent cancer or prevent heart disease, but because I'm trying to create my absolute best life, and because I'm trying to create an amazing, vital, physical, mental, spiritual body. So I like to take that word out of my vocabulary personally, because, think about it this way. You don't give your wife flowers because you're trying to prevent a divorce, right? I mean, maybe some people do, I don't know. But you don't operate your business trying to prevent it from going bankrupt, right? You operate a business to create a profit, to create an impact, to have an influence, and to help people. So why am I trying to be healthy? It's not because I'm trying to prevent something. It's because I'm trying to live my best life. And I don't know what that holds, but I know that if I focus on what I'm trying to prevent, then I'm unconsciously actually creating it. Okay, so that's the one thing that we want to make very clear. And then how the landscape's changed for me, it's changed significantly from my perspective, because after we've worked with literally thousands of people over the years, what I've realized is that 85 to 90% of what people need to do, the onus is actually on the patient. And so in the beginning, the beginner's mistake that I made was I thought I was going to fix everybody, only to realize that only the patient can decide if they want to feel well or not. We're not doing a surgery on somebody where we're completely knocking them out and then performing a procedure, right? There is a partnership and a relationship here. We're a guide, but the patient still has to climb the mountain, right? And so what I realized over the years is that 85, 90, maybe even close to 99% of the outcomes actually come from what the patient is willing to do for themselves. A story that kind of jumps out for me is I had a lady coming in, she was trying to lose weight, her thyroid was a mess. Her low back eventually started bothering her. And one of the first things I told her at her first appointment, before we ran any labs or anything on her, was, you need to quit your job. And I told her that. And so she went through the process. And yes, we found things wrong with her labs. And yes, we put her on a protocol. But, and she got a little bit better. But then eventually her back started bothering her. And so she started seeing a chiropractor, an acupuncturist, a physiotherapist. And I told her, I said, Janice, you really need to quit your job. And she eventually did. And within a week, all of her pain and issues resolved. So, what I realized is that the environment that we're in, our emotional state, whether we feel a sense of appreciation and gratitude, where we feel appreciated at the workplace that we go to, all of these things actually make a huge difference. Some people get better when they get a divorce, right? We had one lady, she went through one of our programs and she lost 250 pounds. The 200 of those pounds were her husband. And her health totally transformed as a result of that. I'm not saying that that's the answer for everybody, but for some people, that's what they need to do. And so what I realized is that my job is to help people, either give them some tough love so they don't have to live a tough life. There are certain things that you can't out supplement. There are certain things you can't out medicate. There are certain things that you can't perform surgery on because you can't see them, right? There are kind of these invisible things that contribute to poor health. And so what I've learned, kind of going back to the original question, is that the patient is responsible for the majority of the outcome. And now we make that very, very clear. For years, we've made that very clear to our clients that ultimately your outcomes are going to be based on what you're willing to do for yourself. Nobody can care for you more than you care for yourself. I mean, I don't even know how that's possible.
I'm laughing because I'm thinking back to first few years of practice and, waking up in the middle of the night. Why isn't this working? Why isn't this working? Why isn't this working? And it was everything was done right and correct. The patient, the client wasn't on board and dialed into what they needed to do. Mm-hmm. They thought what we were going to do was it, and that was going to be everything. And that's not how it works. You have to take that responsibility for yourself. It's very important. And I'm sure you had those nights too, where you were waking up in the middle of the night when you first started with, why isn't this going the way I want it to go?
Yeah. Here's the thing. I think that we've conditioned people to think that they can delegate their health just like they can delegate their taxes. So, it doesn't quite work that way. If we want to be healthy, we've got to create healthy. We've got to earn healthy, and the opposite is true too. So you don't get sick, you create sick. And if people can just tune into that, I know it's hard at first. It might seem a little bit abrasive or insensitive, but that's the difference between tough love and a tough life. If you can buy into the idea, and it's not even buying in, but if you can accept the idea that you're ultimately in control of how you feel and how you function, then an amazing world awaits you. But if you don't believe that, then you're going to just be a victim your entire life, and that doesn't serve anybody.
Right. And you have to be listening to your body as well. I know we've talked about this in the past, but can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah. So, symptoms are kind of this language that the body speaks. We call it body language. And you've got to be really tuned in and dialed in into what's going on and how you can further optimize. So I'll give you an example. For whatever reason, I think I'm actually doing an apple fast. So I ate only apples yesterday. I'm only eating apples today. And for the most part, I'll only be eating apples tomorrow. So I'm tracking my progress. I'm tracking how I feel. I'm tracking my sleep. I'm tracking my deep sleep and my REM sleep. And last night I didn't sleep very well. So I'm listening to my body. So this morning I didn't go to the gym, and that doesn't mean I'm not honoring my body. I'm not doing what's right for my health. I am doing what's right for my health, which is listening to my body first and making that a priority for me. And so today I'm going to take it easy. I'm going to rest, probably go watch a movie, hang out with my family a little bit. And I'm going to physically give my body a chance to heal much more deeply. So being in tune with your body, listening to what it has to say, paying attention to what exacerbates symptoms, what makes you feel better, what makes you feel worse, doing more of what makes you feel better and doing less of what makes you feel not so good. These are things that, sound so simple. And really that's the beauty of it. It is simple. That's the whole point is that health is actually very simple. Disease management is very complicated, but getting healthy can actually be very simple.
Awesome. So this is the $64,000 question. Why should people switch over to this idea of that they are their best doctor? What should compel them to be there?
Well, one thing that I tell people is if you don't own your health, somebody else will own your disease. And the whole system is set up for us to be sick because that's what actually promotes the economic structures that be. The greatest freedom that we can have is health freedom. The freedom to feel amazing, emotionally, spiritually, and of course, physically. The next freedom that I feel is really important is geographic freedom, the ability to be mobile and not just like walk up and down the stairs, but to travel the world and see this amazing planet. And of course, financial freedom, and there's no better financial positioning for you than being healthy. Being healthy allows you to earn more income. It allows you to be more creative. It allows you to be a better entrepreneur, better employee, whatever it is that earns you an income. It allows you to be better at that. And it allows you to be more present as well with your family, with your community, with your church or your temple, wherever you might go. It allows you to be a greater contributor to society. So, for me, health is extremely valuable. I know for you, it's something that you value quite deeply, and it allows you to be the best version of yourself. And, really buying into this form of healthcare it's really the most affordable form of healthcare that I'm aware of. So I haven't missed a day of work in about 12 years, haven't been sick, haven't been laid up, and so that to me is worth a lot of money. My son is 9 years old. He's never been to the doctor. That to me, that's worth a lot of money. I've never had to take a day off work to, take care of him. So it's not just about ourselves, but the people that we love and care about. We can model health for other people, especially our children, because they're paying attention to every single thing that we do and every move we make. They're paying attention and they're absorbing that information. And I believe that, like with the metabolic reset program and the self-care programs like that, people learn skills instead of taking pills. And there's going to be a time and place. Don't get me wrong. There are certain supplements that I take and I'm sure Dave takes and he might recommend to you, but it's not the focus. The focus is what skills are you learning, because those skills are transferable. The skills after 30 days don't run out like the pills do. The skills actually get better. You get better at the skill the more you do it, versus a supplement. The more you take it, the faster it actually runs out. So it's the exact opposite. So we believe in teaching people skills because then they can transfer those from one generation to the next. And I also believe that it's the fastest way to heal people is by teaching people skills, not just giving them magic pills, because that doesn't actually, there is no magic pill, as you probably have discussed previously. There's no magic pill, but there are magic skills.
But and I'm sure it makes your heart warm as when my heart just is so happy when I hear my son or daughter explain to somebody why that's not good what they're doing, or about their health, or about the supplement that they think is going to take care of everything. I have my multi gummy and I'm good. And to hear a 9-year-old go into it, and as my wife says, she's like, I close my eyes and I just hear you going. But you know, with your son as well. I mean, it's you're passing it on generation to generation, and the learning is the most important. You know, it's very important. So
Yeah, you know, you're creating a living legacy.
absolutely, absolutely. So what developments do you see in this movement on the horizon? Because I know there's a lot of talk in the background. There's James Maskell came out with the new book at the turn of the year. So it's picking up speed. So tell us a
Mhm.
little bit about that.
Yeah, sure. So, you know, here's what I envision. Here's what would be a dream come true for me is that, you know, families and children especially learn how to take care of themselves from a very young age. You know, there's three things that we never learn in school. We don't learn anything meaningful about health, nothing meaningful about wealth and finances, and nothing meaningful about growing our own food. So those three things are kind of modern day forms of slavery. So we're handcuffed by debt, handcuffed by poor health, and handcuffed by, you know, a food supply that's poisoned. And people don't even know what real food is anymore because we've reduced food down to a food label, which is very misleading and kind of leaves a lot to be desired and doesn't really demonstrate the power of food when you really think about it. So that would be the dream come true for me, is that we don't have sick people anymore. That's the world that I know you want. That's the world I know you
Absolutely.
want for your children. It's the world I want for my son. And, you know, I don't want him to develop some sort of chronic illness and then have to see a functional medicine doctor. I'd rather him never have to use that service if at all possible. So I'm going to do whatever it takes to keep him out of even my office. Right. And that starts in our home. So that would be the, you know, that would be the grand slam if that happens in our lifetime. And I certainly know you and I are both working towards that by educating our communities, doing presentations like this, and diving a little bit deeper when possible with our clients. And the other thing is we want to bring health into people's homes. So I don't know if you ever watched the movie Wolverine, but there was an Asian gentleman who had this entire hospital inside of his home, and he could repair himself and regenerate himself. And it was really cool to see that. And I see that happening. I see powerful, you know, trackable and wearable tools that are coming our way that already exist that allow us to track our sleep and our heart rate and our resilience and our rest and our HRV, you know, things like Aura rings or heart maths. These units help us really dial into the state of our resilience and our nervous system, which ultimately helps us stay in alignment and stay in tune with our bodies. I think these tools are going to make getting healthy very, very accessible to the average person. Right now, the way the system is set up is you've got to be pretty sick for someone to even listen to you. And then you've got to be even sicker for them to do the deeper investigation that's required. But you know, I just don't see that as a viable option. I also see communities coming together in group-based programs. You know, you're doing this in a group online, so that you know, Facebook and other digital platforms have made it really easy for people like who are like-minded and like-hearted to connect with one another. So I do see technology being leveraged even further. And I also see things like, you know, the patient really becoming the doctor of the future. You know, we've decentralized and democratized information. Information is moving to the point where it has no value anymore because it and may have negative value because it's confusing. So I see, you know, platforms like Facebook and I see, you know, platforms like your practice being incubators for transformation to take place. And you know, people need community. So yes, it's great to be healthy, but it's not great to be healthy on your own. It's actually impossible to be healthy on your own because one of the core requirements of this amazing body that we have is a sense of community and a sense of belonging and a deep sense of purpose. So, you know, community healing, I feel, is the next frontier for us. And then, you know, celebrating each other and, you know, loving life and living a fulfilling life is the next elevation from there.
Absolutely, absolutely, agree 100% with that. It's so I know you have to run to another conversation, but do you have any final thoughts for anybody out there who's trying to wrap their head around this idea that they need to take control?
Well, I think everyone wants control over their health. And so, you know, I know you want control over your health. I want control over my health. I want to decide how I'm going to feel. And usually, I mean, 99.999 times out of 100, it's going to be, I want to feel amazing, right? Sometimes I want to rest. Sometimes I want to chill out and listen to my body. But you're ultimately in control of your body. But what happens is when we give up control and we assume somebody else is going to take care of us and love us as much as we should love ourselves, that's when people's health starts failing them. Nobody can love you or love your health more than you can love yourself. And so the one thing I tell people, the shift that I want people to make is stop loving yourself and your children to death and love yourself and love them to life, because we only get one chance at this, as far as I know. I know some people will say, there's an afterlife or there's reincarnation. I haven't found out yet, so maybe that's true, but I know that I get one shot in this meat suit. So I want to make sure I make the most of it and have the biggest impact possible. And I know in order for me to do that, being healthy is going to be the foundation for that to occur.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I want to thank you again for your time and for bringing this information in front of everybody. You and I are going to see each other in a few weeks, and we'll have a lot more conversation, I'm sure. But again, thank you very much. And thank you from everybody in our community.
Well, it's my absolute pleasure, David. And you keep up the amazing work. For those of you that are watching this, you're very lucky to be surrounded by, David and or Dr. Bennett, whatever you prefer.
David is
because I know how much you care and how much passion you have, and working behind the scenes with you and helping develop some of your programs and putting them out there, your heart's in the right place. So I wish you and your patients and clients and community nothing but continued growth and success and contribution.
Thank you. Thank you. And everybody remember, you are just one change away from bettering your health. Have a great day.